I was a senior brand designer at a 25-person agency in Austin for 5 years. I wasn't just an employee. I built that place. I brought in our 3 biggest accounts: a SaaS company, a finance startup, and a Fortune 500 tech client. Combined, they were $1.2 million a year in retainers. I trained every junior designer. My name was on our award-winning portfolio. My boss was our creative director, Dave. He was a classic corporate parasite. He couldn't design his way out of Canva, but he was amazing at taking credit. We did this. My team did that. But if a client hated something, it was always, Leo didn't listen. I lived with it. Until they hired Mia. Mia was 22, fresh out of college. Talented, but raw. Dave told me to mentor her, so I did. I gave her my personal brush library I spent 10 years collecting. I taught her how to talk to clients. I even let her sit in on my calls with the Fortune 500 client. 2 weeks later, I started getting erased. Dave took me off the Slack channels for my own clients. Then my Fortune 500 client emailed me. "Thanks for the concepts, Mia. Love the new direction." Mia had gone into the server, taken my unfinished working file, changed the font, and sent it as hers. Dave had approved it without even telling me. I confronted Mia after work. She burst into tears. "Leo, I'm so sorry. Dave told me to. He said you were getting fired next week, and if I wanted your job, I had to prove I could handle your clients. He said you were dead weight making too much money." An hour later, Dave called me into his glass office. HR was already there on Zoom. He slid a paper across the table. Performance improvement plan. 30 days. Reason? Poor collaboration, hostile attitude towards new talent, declining quality of work. He was going to fire the guy who made him $1.2 million a year so he could replace me with a $45,000 junior. I sat in my car in the driveway for 25 minutes that night. I couldn't go inside. How was I supposed to tell my wife that after 5 years of 60-hour weeks, I was being put on a PIP like an intern? We had a mortgage. Her mom was about to move in with us for medical treatment. I stared at my steering wheel and had my first ever panic attack. I couldn't breathe. My wife found me there. She didn't say, "It's going to be okay." Instead, she looked me in the eyes and said, "Don't you dare let him do this quietly. Make him choke on his own paperwork." So I signed the PIP, and I became the most compliant employee in corporate history. I read the handbook, page 34. Any employee on a PIP must have all tasks, goals, and feedback documented in writing via the official HR portal. Verbal instructions are not valid for termination. Dave hated writing. He lived for vague verbal drive-bys like, "Make it pop more." Now, every single time he said something, I'd smile and say loudly enough for HR to hear, "Absolutely. Can you just drop that in the portal for my PIP file so I nail it?" He had to. He started spending 2 hours a day writing detailed briefs. His instruction, "Make logo bigger." My reply, "Confirming you want logo increased by what exact percentage, on which specific slides, per PIP documentation. Awaiting written confirmation to proceed." I would do exactly what he wrote. He wrote, "Make homepage more exciting." So, I added literal fireworks GIFs to a Fortune 500 bank's homepage. He screamed. I calmly showed HR the portal. I followed the written instruction verbatim as required by my PIP. He was losing his mind. But that wasn't the revenge. That was just the setup. The real revenge was the files. For 5 years, I was an idiot. I was nice. I kept 800 plus fully editable, perfectly layered working files on the server. Every logo, every brand guide, every campaign. 5 years of work. And I kept my personal 120 gigabyte resource library there too. $3,000 worth of licensed fonts, custom brushes, icons, mock-up templates, all bought with my money. My contract said final deliverables are company property. It said nothing about my personal licensed library. and it said nothing about me having to keep editable master files easily accessible forever. So on a Saturday, I came in. I did two things, both 100% legal. One, I moved my entire personal resource library off the server. Every brush, every font, every template, deleted. HR later confirmed they were personal, licensed assets, not company property. 2. I archived my working files correctly. Every final client-approved file stayed, but every editable master became a flattened, production-ready version. Layers merged, fonts outlined. Still perfect, still printable, but practically impossible to edit quickly. If someone wanted to change one word, they'd have to rebuild the entire document. I was still passing my PIP with perfect scores. Day 29. This is where it becomes legendary. Our Fortune 500 client was being acquired. Their new parent company, a massive public corporation, was flying in their CMO and 2 investors. There was $1.2 million on the line, and potentially a $5 million enterprise contract. Dave wanted to look like a hero, so he promised them something impossible. My team can rebrand the entire 40-page guideline overnight. He volunteered me, without even asking. At 9 p.m., my phone rang. It was Dave. "Leo, I need you to pull up the master files and rebrand everything tonight. New name, new colors, everything. 9 a.m. I replied, "Of course. As per my PIP, could you please document that request in the HR portal first?" He did. At 9:32 p.m., I replied, "Confirming receipt. Attempting to access editable master files and licensed fonts." 30 minutes later, I replied again. "Issue. Editable master files are flattened per final delivery archive standard. Personal licensed fonts have been removed. Estimated rebuild time, 40 to 50 hours. Unable to complete overnight. Please advise." Dave called me 11 times. I didn't answer. Everything had to stay in writing. 9 a.m., the boardroom. Dave, our CEO, the client's CMO, 2 investors, and me. Dave had nothing, just a flattened PDF. The CMO asked, "Where's the rebranded deck?" Dave froze. There were some file issues. I stood up, projected the HR portal onto the screen, and calmly walked everyone through 29 days of documented instructions, the flattened archive, and Dave promising a 50-hour project in 10 hours. The room went silent. Then the CMO spoke. "You promised us a professional agency. You brought us a manager who doesn't know what a layered file is, who promises work without checking resources, and who is trying to fire the only person in this room who understands our brand." That afternoon, they paused the contract. $1.2 million gone. Mia stood up, crying. "He told me to steal Leo's files. He told me Leo was being fired. He told all of us that." HR launched an investigation that afternoon. By Friday, Dave was fired for cause. No severance. Mia apologized. I forgave her. She wasn't the villain. She was just 22, being manipulated. The CEO personally offered me Dave's job, creative director. I smiled and said, no. I'd already signed with the Fortune 500 client's new parent company. Double the salary, and I took our $1.2 million client with me as my very first act. Dave thought a PIP would quietly erase 5 years of my career. Instead, it erased his reputation, his biggest client, and the easiest job he'd ever had. The company kept my flattened files. The client kept me.